Ready, set,
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's going well. We're remote today. Nobody's here in the studio in person. I'm sitting here all alone. Virtually welcomed here by myself. Not as much, but these are always fun too. It's good to hear.
I'm giving you a high five from here, buddy.
Oh, my favorite kind of high five, the virtual one. So we're back this week once again, 2 weeks away from the regular season. Next week, we're doing our bold prediction show, Matt's favorite. But this week, we're going to wrap up with our top 12 fantasy football wide receivers for the 2022 season, who we think will finish in the top 12. We each got our own personal list here. We have no idea who's on the other person's list, but we're going to find out here momentarily. Stay tuned for the end of the show. We're going to have a way to find out how to get into our first annual Dynasty Nerds redraft league that we're going to host on our friend Sleeper, a great friend of ours. You can actually find the Dynasty Nerds podcast now on the Sleeper app. If you go in their podcast section, you will see the Dynasty Nerds podcast. You can check us out there as well, courtesy of the Spotify channel. So check us out there. But we will have a redraft show. It's going to be on Sleeper. There's going to be some prizes. There's going to be stuff to give away. You're going to play against myself, Garret, and Matt. Your odds of winning, better. It's redraft, better. Likely, probably not. I'll probably win. Those are just the odds. So speaking of odds, though, guys, before we begin,
how odds work.
I'll explain all that at the end of the show. But speaking of odds, let's talk about our friends at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks, you've been hearing us talk about them for a while. As the season ramps up here, there's going to be so much action you could get in on PrizePicks. It's a great place to go and make some prop bets. Basically over-under projections, right? You pick 2 to 5 players, you win 10 times your entry. It's a fantastic way to use your football knowledge to win some coin, right? But it's not just football. It's golf. It's baseball. It's college football. It's MMA. It's any kind of thing that they're sports-related. They're going to give you some over-under projections on it. And right now, speaking of receivers, Matt, do you got a couple of those over-under projections on receivers? Maybe we could kind of look at, maybe win something on here?
Yeah, let me take a look here. This is a good one. Keenan Allen, 1,050 yards. Keeping in mind that Mike Williams is also on the same team, and he's going to be catching a ton of passes. So 1,050, that's going to be a tough one, right? What are you taking?
I don't think it's too tough. I think he's a solid 1,100-yard receiver. It's a good 50 yards over. I'll take the over.
Wow, big-time buffer there.
This offense
all right, so
goes
another
to football
one
too much not to go over.
No, I totally agree. I think Keenan Allen's going to be an over on that one as well. My next guy would be Michael Pittman Jr., 1,025.
Smash the over.
Yeah, for the presumed number one there in the Colts offense.
God,
Definitely
dude,
a smash.
That overhold. It's so hard. So hard. Porn star.
And my last one that I think is probably another layup for you guys, CeeDee Lamb, 1,175.5 yards.
Better at the over. Or my rankings are in trouble.
No, I think he's a 1,300-yard receiver, easy in my book. So I'm going over on that one as well.
Has there been an over/under projection on PrizePicks that so far we have not smashed the over? That we found
not really. I try to pick the ones that I think we'll pick as overs. The Keenan Allen one was one that was kind of borderline, just because Mike Williams effect. Another one that I think is a pretty good line actually. Travis Kelce, 1,100 yards, but Tyreek Hill's there. This is a tight end. That's our next show, but I still think he might.
Tyreek Hill's not there anymore.
Oh, did I say he's there? I meant he's not there anymore.
Yeah,
not there.
Yeah, I mean, 1,100 is way less than 1,000,000 yards, so I'm smashing that over too.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That's an easy one. And I mean, there's so many on here right now, and you can mix and match in between sports. All you got to do is get the PrizePicks. Use that promo code NERDS. They're going to instantly match your deposit up to $100. So you put $100 in, you got $200 to get in there to win $2 million, like we just said, like Travis Kelce's receiving yards this season. And on top of that, if you use the promo code NERDS and you actually place a bet, fill out the Google sheet below our podcast in the notes, put your name, the email you use to sign up with the promo code, and we're going to send you the most comfortable shirt in the world, the Dynasty Nerds t-shirt, as a thank you for supporting our sponsor. So Remember, promo code NERDS, PrizePicks, win some cash, all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to have a good time all year finding these prop bets that we love. So, top 12 receivers for the 2022 season PPR leagues. Let's just let's dive in here, shall we? Do you guys want to go through your top three first, Garrett, Matt, and then I'll go. We'll go over our top three and see if we're all on the same page and kind of where we differ here.
Matt, you go ahead and go first.
I'm gonna go this year. I'm gonna put Justin Jefferson where I think he's gonna rightfully belong. I think Justin Jefferson's gonna break out in this offense. It's gonna be him. I'm gonna go Cooper Kupp as number 2. And then it gets a little bit more difficult because you get some murkiness going. But I'm going to go with the young buck again here and go Chase, Jamar Chase.
Wow, we are so different, Matt. We're not even close. Actually, it's identical. I have Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, then Jamar Chase. I think that offense passing more in Minnesota is going to be great for Justin Jefferson. And as much as I like Thielen, we know he's an aging veteran, and Jefferson still put up yards regardless of him being there. I do have Cooper Kupp next. I think there's bound to be some sort of regression. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest receiving seasons of all time. And then there was a lot of other like maybes, but there's like question-ish marks for a lot of other guys right after. But there's really no question mark for Jamar Chase. I guess the only thing you could maybe say is like, does T. Higgins have a bigger role than last year? But I mean, it's an improved offensive line. They're coming off the Super Bowl. Like, I don't see a lot of reason to not have him in the top 3. So yes, our top 3 is identical. Rich, please be different.
It is different. So,
okay.
Buckle up, boys. My number 1 fantasy receiver for the 22 season is Justin Jefferson. My number 2 receiver on the year is Jamar Chase. My number 3 receiver is Cooper Kupp.
So different.
It is definitely different. Start at the top with Justin Jefferson. We all have him as our number 1 receiver, and there's a lot of reasons that point to why Jefferson's going to finish as a number 1 receiver, has a good chance to. This is a player so far that came into his rookie year, finished as wide receiver 6 overall, averaging slightly over 17 points per game in PPR leagues. And then all of a sudden comes into his sophomore year, was wide receiver 4, averaging 19.4 points per game. And what do? They bring in a new offense. That LA offense with Kevin O'Connell coming in as the head coach. They want to open this up. Justin Jefferson's already spoken on it about how good this offense is and how he understands how Cooper Kupp did so well last year. Justin Jefferson, one of the best receivers in the league at getting open. Dynamic at all 3 different levels of the field. So we're talking about a guy that has gotten better every single year. Somebody came in last year. He was a wide receiver 1, a little bit over a third of the season. He was a top 24 receiver, a little bit over 2/3 of the season. This is each and every single week. So you mentioned Adam Thielen. They got Irv Smith, and he did this. I mean, look what he did so far in his rookie year and sophomore year, and that was like a run-first offense for the most part. They're really focused on the run. They had Dalvin Cook there, and he still dominated the fantasy football landscape. Now with Kevin O'Connell coming in, you have to expect this offense to open a little bit more. Justin Jefferson in his 3rd year, still getting ready to become the highest-paid receiver in the NFL, and so Jamar Chase becomes available the year after. And somebody who set the wide receiver rookie record as receiver coming in, broken by Jamar Chase, of course. So I do expect Justin Jefferson to be my number 1 receiver. We have the same top 3, so I think we like all 3 of these guys equally. If you're a top 3 fantasy receiver, there's a good chance you're going to make your fantasy football playoffs. So for Jefferson, for me, it's I feel more secure about that all 3 of us had him as number 1. Nobody had Cooper Kupp, nobody had Jamar Chase. Is there anything else, Matt, you got on Justin Jefferson you want to throw in here? Some stats? Any news? Any notes?
Nothing that you haven't already kind of crushed or we haven't talked about here. I mean, just the new offense in general. Just obviously this is the same offense that Cooper Kupp kind of exploded in last year. And I mentioned last week on the podcast or 2 weeks ago on the podcast how Justin Jefferson just couldn't believe how Cooper Kupp kept getting open in that offense until he saw how the offense kind of worked, throughout training camp and all that kind of stuff. And if Cooper Kupp can get that open, Justin Jefferson's a guy that's going to be getting even more open in this kind of style of offense. So I just think he's going to feast, and this is the year that he kind of fully breaks out, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, it's why he's also my dynasty wide receiver one as well. I know you're splitting hairs with him and Jamar Chase. I love that top tier. I haven't felt. I'm trying to think of going back receivers probably since Calvin Johnson, guys, that you've had two receivers that are 23 years old or younger amongst the top of these. It's been led by running backs forever for the number one overall player for years. And now we have these two young guys at the top of your dynasty fantasy football overall rank. So if you're going to start up, you're really looking at Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. It's nice that we just don't have one like a Calvin Johnson, a receiver that we expect to, a guy like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, we expect to be a top 6 fantasy producer for the next 9 years, 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, even followed up, I have Jamar Chase as number 2. You guys have Cooper Kupp at number 2. And that's fair. I mean, because, Chase, you have T. Higgins there, right? A lot of people expect T. Higgins to be a wide receiver 1 this year. And Cooper Kupp brings in Allen Robinson. So for me, looking at the 2, I just think Jamar Chase is a better overall pure receiver than Cooper Kupp. And I know, and again, splitting hairs, this is no diss to Cooper Kupp whatsoever. I just saw what Jamar Chase was able to do come in his rookie year. Coming in, breaking that record with 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns and 81 catches, all-time rookie record. I know he is very touchdown dependent as well, but a player of his stature, I think he's going to stay consistent in those touchdown numbers. Where, we see a lot of regression when it comes to touchdown numbers. I think he could have a good chance to stay there. Looking at his numbers with T. Higgins on the field, right? Like, what does that share? When they were both on the field last year, Chase actually out-targeted T. Higgins with 23.4% to 21.7% target share for them both when they're on the field. And they even increased a little bit more slightly in the playoffs where Jamar Chase saw 24.5% of the target share compared to T. Higgins' 21% share. So I do think that this team is going to throw the football a little bit more. I think Jamar Chase is in the second season of the NFL. And that means a little bit more because you got to remember, he sat out his senior year of college. So
he had a whole year off.
He came in with a year off, broke the rookie receiving record, dominated with Joe Burrow, who's also just removed for a major injury, right? He had ligament tears in his knee. So now he's back for a full year, recovered from that. Jamar Chase is acclimated in the NFL a year. I think this offense is going to become even more explosive. I think T. Higgins benefits Jamar Chase. So for me, when I was looking at Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase, I was splitting hairs. But what I've seen from Chase all the way from last year through the preseason and practices now, I think there's a better chance that Jamar Chase is the number 1 overall fantasy receiver than him finishing outside the top 2.
The reason that I had Cooper Kupp ahead of him was early on in the season last year, his touchdown percentage, specifically on long plays, was just outrageous. Some of them were just because he would flat out beat the guy, but there were other that were broken plays and things like that. So I think if you remove a touchdown or two, especially of the 50, 60, 70-yard variety, that could bring things back to normal a little bit, whereas Cooper Kupp is simply just on volume, and I don't think the volume is going to change much. So that was why the slight bump. But would it shock me if Jamar Chase ended up being the number 1 overall this season? It wouldn't shock me in the least. He has the talent to do it. That was just kind of where the line of demarcation was for me.
And absolutely same thing for me as far as the volume going to Kupp and kind of just the explosiveness of Chase's plays. I mean, they can be a little bit boomer bust. That's just the nature of those kind of plays. So they are just a little bit more or a little bit less consistent than what you're going to get out of Cooper Kupp, and that's why I left Cooper at 2 instead of 3. But again, like you said, Rich, totally splitting hairs. These guys are all fine players. You want all of them on your team, and all 3 of these guys have the potential to be number 1 overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, but see, and that we have to see a little bit of regression from Cooper Kupp. I mean, he saw 191 targets last year, caught 145, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns. They're bringing Allen Robinson.
But he eats breakfast with the quarterback, Rich. I mean, he's still going to get 191 targets.
Yeah, I think Allen Robinson's going to. I think Allen Robinson will eat that a little bit. I think Van Jefferson should help out a little bit when he's healthy.
What have we really seen from Allen Robinson the past few years? I mean, I know he's a good
outside
player.
of last year, he's been over 1,000-yard receiver year in, year out.
Yeah, was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't even remember. It feels like forever
2 years ago. Last year was his
kind of
bad
relevant.
year.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, is he a one-for-one replacement for Odell Beckham? Possibly, but Cooper Kupp was still able to do his thing when Odell was there, so I'm not too worried about Allen Robinson or really any other wide receiver in this offense, because I still think Kupp is the guy that Matthew Stafford's looking for in this offense. Whenever anything happens, when he's in trouble, he's looking for him. He's the primary guy on most routes that are being run. So Cooper Kupp is just kind of the top dog in my opinion.
I mean, historically, we see when these receivers put up these kind of big time numbers, there's always some regression. I mean, it's usually right around like a 15% drop. I think historically, when these receivers go for those kind of numbers, when they go over 1,600 yards, and there's not even a lot of guys. I think going back in this, since we hit the year even 2000, there's only been 14 receivers to even top 1,600 yards. It's such a monumental task to even achieve in himself. So we just had to expect some natural regression there just of that alone. So, but again, splitting hairs.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way he's going to get 1,900 plus yards again.
But,
I mean, I totally agree there's going to be a regression, but he was so far and away ahead of the number 2 guy. It was ridiculous. It was like 80 points or something above him. So even if he did regress a little bit, he's still got plenty of opportunity to still top the list. He just might not be quite as dominant as he was last year.
He could come in at 170 targets, lose 21 targets on the season, and still be one of, if not the most targeted player in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, even like a 15% drop for him, he's at like 120 catches for like 1,500 yards and like 13.5 touchdowns, right? So he's still a high-end wide receiver one. I mean, all 3 of these guys are league winners. It literally take an injury for them not to be wide receiver one. So it's a really good top 3. Matt, let's hear your 4, 5, 6.
I'm really curious about 4 because I think this is where things could get really interesting. So I'm curious as to who your 4 is here, Matt.
All right, so my number 4 guy, I'm gonna flip from all these. Well, I guess they aren't all young, but I'm going to Devontae Adams as my 4th guy, Tyreek Hill is my 5th guy, and then AJ Brown. 3 guys that all switched teams last year.
Whoa!
But I'm going 4, 5, and 6 with Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to just run right through your guys' as well, and we can kind of discuss where we're at, or how you guys want to do this. I wasn't on last week's show, so I missed it.
Well, here I'll give mine real quick. We'll let Rich give his, and then we can start debating it out because I joked about us being very different last time, but this time we truly are very, very different. After 3, so number 4, I actually have CeeDee Lamb at number 4. At 5, I have Stephon Diggs. And at 6, I have Devontae Adams. So we only have one of the same 4, 5, 6, and that guy's at 6. So, Rich, where are you at?
I took a little bit from both of you guys. I have at number 4, Devontae Adams. Okay. Number 5, CeeDee Lamb. Number 6, Tyreek Hill. And a little teaser, I don't even have AJ Brown in my top 12.
I don't either.
Wow.
I don't have him in the top 12 either. So Matt, you're gonna have to explain that one.
I mean, how do you guys not? I don't understand how you don't have him in. If he was to stay healthy all year long with the Jalen Hurts connection that's supposedly sparkling throughout all of camp, how could you not have a guy like AJ Brown who's shown to be a dominant force not in your top 12? That to me is almost confusing, and I feel like you guys need to explain.
We have to explain ourselves. We're the ones that are agreeing.
He can sparkle all he wants, but I'm not looking for ponies. I'm looking for fantasy football wide receiver ones here, Matthew.
I understand.
I'll tell you why he won't be a wide receiver one. His There's two names. One, a little smaller name. It goes by the name of Dallas Goedert. Just a little smaller name, a very fantastic tight end in NFL. And I've been saying it on this podcast forever. The most underrated receiver in NFL right now and fantasy player is Devontae Smith. That guy is always open. He's too good of a route runner. I love A.J. Brown. I think he's really good. I do. I think he's really good. But I also think Devontae Smith is amazingly good as well, and I think he's going to take some targets. And the fact is, I just don't think Jalen Hurts is a good enough thrower of the football, an actual NFL quarterback thrower of the football to support two high-end receivers, where one could be a wide receiver 1 and one could be a wide receiver 2. I just don't see it happening.
I agree with that. That's why
13, 14.
That's why I bumped Devontae Smith down a little bit, because I think A.J. Brown is going to be taking most of the targets as far as the wide receivers. And, I mean, I do understand that Devontae Smith is a good player and that he can get open, but all reports from camp is it wasn't even close. A.J. Brown was the best player in camp by far, and it was him, and then 2 or 3 levels down, then it was everyone else. So I'm taking that kind of hype, and I think Jalen Hurts, as we all say, is not where he needs to be as a passer, but he has progressively gotten a little bit better and shown a little bit more, and probably shown more than I thought he was capable of. So I'm going to take the leap with him this year, and I'm going to say A.J. Brown does make it into the top 12, right there at number 6 for me.
I'm with you on Jalen Hurts. I do like Jalen Hurts, and I think he's better than we historically have given him credit on this show. That being said, I have AJ Brown at 14, and it's nothing against his talent, Matt. I remember you and I, when he came out, we talked about this is the most talented receiver in the class. So I understand the ability and the talent, but part of it is going to be we haven't seen anyone consistently come close to putting up wide receiver 1 numbers with Jalen Hurts. Now, is AJ Brown more talented? Maybe, but I don't know that he's significantly more talented than Devontae Smith. We're talking about a Heisman Trophy winner that went in the first round. He is a very, very talented player as well.
They're very different players. They're very, you know what I mean? They're different to throw the football to.
They're AJ built Brown, completely different. One looks like a running back, and one looks like he's like malnourished. I get it. They're very different, overall. But
they're very different as to how you throw the ball to them as well. I mean, like A.J. Brown, sure. you chuck it down the field to him when he doesn't necessarily have a huge cushion. He can still come down with the ball. That's not really Devontae Smith's game. He's a very technically sound guy that's going to have some separation. But if you're not the most accurate thrower of the football, even if a guy does have separation, if you throw it a little bit behind him, all of a sudden it's not a great pass and the completions aren't there. You know what I'm saying? But if you throw to A.J. Brown, he's kind of open no matter what. If it's a little bit behind him, he's going to muscle out a defender to get to the ball and kind of make some of those poor errant throws. He makes up for some of that, I think, with his physicality and his catch radius.
He definitely can, but we haven't seen anyone historically with Hurts put up anywhere close to consistent wide receiver 1 numbers. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and we saw in the second half of last year, they're really trying to run the ball more than they did in the beginning of last year. So I think between Jalen Hurts running, the team's running, and just all of the mouths to feed, and Jalen Hurts being good but not great passer of the football, I just think it's going to be hard for them to have a wide receiver 1 in Philadelphia.
I think you guys are going to rue the day that you put him outside of your wide receiver 1.
We'll know the answer to this question in about 4 months?
Yep. Yeah,
we'll know the answer.
We'll probably know by 2 months.
That's all we need.
We'll have a good idea, but
can't believe Matt wasted his bold prediction.
Yeah, you should have saved it for next week.
AJ Brown, wide receiver.
I didn't think it was bold, so I mean, why would I plan to save that? I thought that was
next week. He's going to come in. AJ Brown, wide receiver 2 on the year.
He's just going to keep going up.
So we all had. Matt, you didn't have Devontae Adams?
Devontae Adams was my number 4 guy. Yep.
Number 4. Garrett, you had Devontae Adams, right? And I had Devontae Adams. So I had him at 4. Matt had him at 4. You had him 6. So we're splitting hairs there, coming off career highs with 123 catches, 1,553 yards, 11 touchdowns. Yes, he switches teams, but you argue this is the better pass catching core that Devontae Adams has ever been on, with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. He's got really good familiarity with his quarterback and Derek Carr, because they're college teammates for 2 years. Again, we mentioned at Fresno State, they led the nation in touchdowns there as well. Davante Adams scores tons of touchdowns. And plus, you got to remember, Davante Adams isn't just a benefactor of Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the better route runners in the league. He gets off the line just as good as anybody in the league. He's just a dominant receiver as a whole. So I think we're all pretty comfortable on Davante Adams, right? No reason to explain why he's in our top 6.
Nope, I think we're good to go on him.
Yep, correct. Yep.
And we all had Tyreek Hill in our top 6 as well. Another player.
I didn't have Tyreek Hill.
You did not?
No.
Where do you have Tyreek Hill? How about that? How about a little tease?
Where do I have Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
I have him at 9.
So Garrett has him at 9. Me and Matt do have him at top 6. Matt, why do you like Tyreek Hill here in your top 6?
I mean, obviously, historically, he's one of these top guys, regardless of I mean, I guess not regardless of who's throwing on the ball, because it's always been Patrick Mahomes. But I'm not going to knock him too much with the switch from Mahomes to the new offense here. I think it's going to be a very creative offense that, relies on the run, pounds the rock a bit, and makes a lot of easy throws for Tua. And we've seen a little bit of glimpses of it in the preseason. He can get the ball downfield, but there's going to be a lot of times when he's just checking it down to Tyreek Hill, on short crossing routes and stuff like that. Real stuff that Tua's historically done going back to college with him and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki there as well. I think it's going to be a offense that pulls people in until it pops one over the top, and I think that's going to be Tyreek Hill as the guy that gets loose once or twice a game. And I don't think there's going to be a big fall off as far as his production from last year and the years before when he was, perennially up here in the top 5 or 6. So I'm not going to knock him at all until he gives me reason to. How about that?
No, 100%. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's an all-timer, right, when it comes to talent. Right. His explosiveness. We talk about Davante Adams getting off the line. Tyreek Hill just explodes off the line as well. I think Mike McDaniels will put him in a ton of situations where it's catch and go, right? Like, here's the ball, go make plays, because that's what Tyreek Hill could do with his speed. And like you said, and just open it up for to take the top off the defense as well. And when it comes to throwing the football downfield for accuracy, per Pro Football Focus, Tua Tagovailoa was number 1 in deep ball accuracy at 55.2% in the NFL last year per Pro Football Focus. So I think Tyreek Hill is dangerous, again, at all 3 different levels of the field. This is a player that gave $72 million guaranteed, so you better bet your tuchus that they're going to scheme around Tyreek Hill. And you got Jalen Waddle offset too, so that's going to help him a ton. You got Mike Gesicki. Chase Edmonds has looked absolutely dynamic so far in the preseason in this offense as well. I think even though you have Cedric Wilson, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Gesicki, you got Chase Edmonds, all viable pass catchers in this offense, Tyreek Hill is just too good not to succeed. Having him here at number 6, which was where he finished last year, right? He had a couple of injuries. He was wide receiver the year before. I was questioning myself, like, when I actually put him in there, I'm like, am I cheating myself on Tyreek Hill? But I think with all the question marks and other better weapons around him, I think it's a fair place to put Tyreek Hill at number 6. And I'm with Matt. Like, he's just too good not to produce extremely good numbers in this offense. I think Mike McDaniels is a creative and smart enough to coach to find ways to use Tyreek Hill, either on ends around, just to get the ball in his hands. I mean, it's set in San Francisco. We don't care about the play. Our number 1 concern is actually just putting the ball in our playmakers' hands. And that's what Tyreek Hill, he's a dynamic playmaker.
Yeah, the reason I have him a little bit lower than you guys, and you'll see kind of on all of these guys for the most part, as far as these receivers that switch teams, I have them a little bit lower than you guys, a little bit lower than consensus. Not a ton, like a couple spots lower on Devontae, a couple spots lower. Well, same spot as you, Rich, on A.J. Brown, quite a bit lower than Matt on A.J. Brown. And then once again here, I'm a little bit lower than you guys on Tyreek. And that's because traditionally, and there are exceptions to this rule, we had 2 or 3 years ago with Diggs and Hopkins were kind of the outliers that really shook this rule. But before that, we had not seen many players at the wide receiver position transition teams and have immediate success as top 5, top 10 assets at the wide receiver position. So it's a little bit uncharted. And when we go specifically to Miami, if we look at the Kyle Shanahan offense, and I remember talking about this last year when we were talking about George Kittle, we were talking about Deebo Samuel, and we were talking about Brandon Ayuk. I don't know that all of these guys will be able to feast. And I feel that same way about this Miami offense. Tua is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. I don't know that all of the pieces in this offense are going to be able to feast. Now, is there a chance where Tyreek Hill becomes that one guy that does it and just absolutely goes bonkers? There's a real chance of that. But there's also a real chance that, and I know this is going to seem like sacrilegious to say this, but that Jalen Waddle is the wide receiver one in this offense. Like, we haven't seen all of these guys on the field at the same time play yet. Jalen Waddle was putting up some pretty amazing. Had Jamar Chase not put up the numbers that he did, we would have been talking about Jalen Waddle as rookie of the year type candidate. We were talking about him as a top 10, maybe even top 8 asset at wide receiver before Tyreek Hill came in. And they already have chemistry from their days at Alabama and then their first year in Miami. And in Shanahan's offense, which we assume this is going to be the same thing in McDaniel's offense, they like to run the football. They like to run the football quite a bit. If there's going to be a team that's going to be anywhere close to 50%, it's going to be San Francisco, it's going to be the Titans, it's going to be Baltimore, and it's probably going to be Miami, just based on what we've seen out of Shanahan prospects before. So I'm a little bit down on him. I still have him as a wide receiver one, but I just don't know that we're going to have the consistency that we saw at a Tyreek Hill last season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with all the points that you make because, again, when you have a guy like Jalen Waddle, who was a top 7 fantasy football wide receiver, it's easy to worry about, right? Like somebody else coming in and taking that role. But what would excite me, though, about that is that Tua was able to help Jalen Waddle in this, in that offense with him become a wide receiver 7. And Tyreek Hill right now at this development is just a better receiver than Jalen Waddle. I mean, Tyreek Hill's a Hall of Famer at this point of his career. And the only other thing I would say is, even though you mentioned, like, besides DeAndre Hopkins, probably Robert Woods, we don't see these receivers go to new teams and succeed. We've also never seen anything like this happen in the NFL where these star receivers at 27, 26, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, change teams like this. It's like a whole new NFL open up upon us. We never see it, let alone 3 guys come out and get traded. And a lot of these guys requesting trades. Devontae Adams wanted to be traded. Tyreek Hill wanted to be traded. A.J. Brown didn't want to be traded, but he also wanted to be paid. So DeAndre Hopkins was kind of like, whoa, you got traded because Houston just needed that 95-year-old running back. So at the other way as well. So, but you have him as wide receiver 9. I'm a wide receiver 6. We're still in that kind of same category there. Now, one player that you and I, Garrett, had in our top 6 was CeeDee Lamb. Matt, where did you have CeeDee Lamb in your overall rankings? Did you even make it in your top 12?
7. Yeah, he's right there at the next pick for me. Yeah.
Oh, so you'll be talking here shortly here.
And to your point, or back to Garrett's list, I guess he also had Stephon Diggs, who was a 8 for me. So we weren't really that far off as far as the guys that we had on our list.
And where did you have Diggs, Rich?
I guess Stephon Diggs is 7.
Okay, so yeah, we're not crazy far.
7.
I'm at 5. I know we expect a jump for Gabe Davis this year, but Stephon Diggs was fantastic last year, even with things, being cut into him a little bit. So, and his touchdown numbers were down a little bit last year as well. But real quick, I do want to touch on CeeDee Lamb. The big reason that I have him at 4, which I know is pretty high for somebody that we haven't seen consistently put up these kind of numbers, is we've seen tons of big games, specifically last year. We saw tons of games where he had over 17 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So almost half his season, he had over 17 points per game, which would be a really solid game. Problem was we had 1, 2, 3, 4 games where he had under 6, and a couple of those were in the 4-point range. So I think that's what changes this year for CeeDee Lamb, a guy that has moments where he just looks like a beast, completely unstoppable, but then other times he just kind of disappeared a little bit. He doesn't have the luxury of being able to disappear this year. He's going to be fed every single game. He's going to be consistent every single game. And I think those valleys are going to be much better than they were previously.
And I mean, I agree.
Yeah,
with
I had
CeeDee
Lamb at number 5 overall.
I agree. I think
I had him above Tyreek Hill.
I guess my CeeDee Lamb ranking may feel a little bit low now that we've discussed it out. Just because I do think he's going to have a great chance of, especially early on in the season when, guys are either injured or coming off injury, it's really just kind of him and Dalton Schultz are going to be the two main guys in the passing game. He's going to really feast early on in the season. When Michael Gallup does come back to full health, I think that's going to take away from it, his number one presence slightly. I mean, he's still going to be the number one guy, but he might not be quite as heavily targeted once Gallup gets back on the field, because Gallup got a pretty nice contract, despite the fact that he was coming off an ACL injury. So they do want to use him as well. But this is like the natural year 3 type of breakout type of performance I see from CD. So 7 may be a little bit low, but maybe I just have higher expectations for guys like A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill and stuff like that than Garrett does, for instance. So that's kind of how he landed there for me.
Yeah, so I have CeeDee Lamb even above Tyreek Hill at number 5, and I honestly thought about putting him ahead of Devontae Adams, even put him at number 4 receivers. That's where you have
number
Garrett, number 4. Is that what you said? So I actually thought I'd put him there too, because we talk about a guy. Like, let's look at this receiving group that we've talked about as a whole, right? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson. Who else did I miss? Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. It's CeeDee Lamb against CeeDee Lamb, right? I mean, it's a rookie Jalen Tolbert, and he's got his tight end Dalton Schultz. We're talking about a guy who is coming off a year of 79 receptions for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. We talk about 191 targets for Cooper Kupp. There is a chance that CeeDee Lamb could lead the league in targets this year, because there's really nobody else to throw the football out there to besides Jalen Tolbert. This is an offense that's going to throw the football. They're in a dome. And look at the target share that's even available. With Cooper Kupp gone, Cedric Wilson gone, that's 165 targets, 25.5% of the team's total targets. CeeDee Lamb entering year 3. We know historically year 3 is a breakout year for most stars, right? That's a year where these guys really take a big step forward. We've seen steady progression out of CeeDee Lamb coming into his second year. He's got 2,000 receiving yards in his first 2 seasons. Again, really good historical numbers here. So for me, CeeDee Lamb, the number 1 target on a high-powered offense with no real competition. We don't know when Michael Gallup's going to be back 100%, right? Probably right around week 5, week 6. That's half the football season, the fantasy football season, half. So even just with a really hot start with CeeDee Lamb, this could carry him this number 5. If he stays steady with that, CeeDee Lamb could jump into that top 3 overall finish, potentially number 1 overall finish. We said, who are the receivers outside of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson that are going to enter that realm of young stud dynasty receivers that are the top 5 startup picks? And we said who? CeeDee Lamb and Michael Pittman were the guys we were betting on. I think there's a chance that CeeDee Lamb enters that tier 1 fold this year. And yeah, could it get a little bit more murky with Michael Gallup? Yes, but I don't consider Michael Gallup. He's a nice receiver. He's a good receiver, but he's not a threat to CeeDee Lamb or his target share. So, and Dalton Schultz, we know he's on a franchise tag only. They didn't re-sign him. So I think CeeDee Lamb has a very good chance to even beat the number 5 ranking I have here. Targets, just like we talk about, running backs. How many carries they get can carry their way to be running back 1s. I think CeeDee Lamb will see enough targets to carry himself to a top 5 finish this year in 2022. I love the vacated targets. I love the player. I love the quarterback, and I love the run game to really open things up for him as well. I think CeeDee Lamb's in for a monster year in 2022.
Let's talk about our friends at Prediction Strike. That's right. Prediction Strike is back, and this is the perfect time of year because I went in, and we talked about it last week. I went in and bought a bunch of those Michael Pittman Jr. shares. So if you saw the price go up from last week, that's mostly my fault because I bought like a ton of shares of Michael Pittman Jr. But you can go in there. The rookies are now in there if you want to go in there and look at Dameon Pierce, who's probably already skyrocketed in price. But you could look at guys like Zamir White, Khalil Shakir, some of the low-end guys. Or maybe you're like, you know what, I want to take some of these top rookies. Breece Hall, people are down on Breece Hall right now. You can go in and take advantage of those types of situations. But you can go over there, use the promo code DYNASTY to receive a free share of a player. That's right, use promo code DYNASTY at PredictionStrike.com. And lastly, I do want to make a quick announcement. we are excited to announce that we are going to be having our own show over on the Better Sports Network. Now, this is a brand new app that just launched. The show started this week. So this is brand new concept, bunch of shows going all day long. If you're a person that likes Sirius satellite radio, you're going to absolutely love this show. Now, it'll be a little bit different than the show that we do here at Dynasty Nerds. I'll be on the show every week. There'll be times that we see Rich, there'll be times that we see Matt, but I'll be hosting. We're going to have a bunch of awesome guests in, and we're going to be doing some things talking about some betting lines. We're going to be talking about the games that are going on. It's going to be even during the Thursday night football. So in the second half of the game, we're going to be 10 to midnight Eastern time. You can join in with us. September 8th is when we're launching. You can go ahead and join us at the Better Sports Network.
And the big thing is you can call in, right? Like, so you can call into the show. Yeah, I told Garrett, like, I'm going to try and get on as much as I can. It might be the whole show, but maybe I can get on there for an hour, from 9:30 to 10:30. We can take some phone calls and talk some Dynasty Fantasy Football with the listeners as well. So excited for that.
Cool. Let's get into it.
All right. You want to jump in there 7, 8, 9? All right, Matt, lead us off with your number 7, 8, and 9.
All right. So we already talked about my 7, 8, and my 7 and 8 guys. So I had CeeDee Lamb at 7, Stephon Diggs at 8, and then Michael Pittman Jr. at 9.
All right.
Yeah. Garrett, where are you at, man?
For me, I have Deebo Samuel at 7. I have Mike Evans at 8. And I have Tyreek Hill at 9. And sneak peek, I do have Michael Pittman Jr. at 10. But now I'm mad that you have him slightly higher than I do.
I put him there just to make you mad.
Where'd Matt have him?
He had him at 9.
I had him at 9.
10.
Okay. Well, let's make everybody mad here. At number 7, I have Stephon Diggs. At number 8, I have Michael Pittman Jr. At number 9, I have DJ Moore.
Moore.
Well, I mean, at number 7, Stephon Diggs. Matt, you had Stephon Diggs at number
8.
Garrett, you had him your top 6.
Yep.
I don't think there's a ton we need to talk about Stephon Diggs. I mean, his first season, Buffalo, 127 catches, 1,535 yards, 8 touchdowns. Was, what did he go with last year? 103 catches, 1,225 yards, 10 touchdowns. So a throw first offense. Not a lot to talk about Stephon Diggs. He's everybody's wide receiver 1. It'd be hard to imagine him not falling. Finish as wide receiver 1. So I have Michael Pittman at 8. Matt, you have Michael Pittman Jr. at 9. And Garrett, you have him at 10?
Yep.
He basically hates Michael Pittman Jr.
So let's talk about Michael Pittman Jr. Yeah. Clearly.
I mean, obviously.
We're talking about a player here who's just going to have just an overall so much better team around him, right? Like the run game and offensive line are still golden, but he's got 2 good receivers coming in now that, hopefully if they stay healthy, and Paris Campbell Jr., second-round pick Alex Smith, Alec Pierce, who they're going to have to respect a little bit. With his size, his speed, he could get down to that, he can take the top off a defense down there. You got to respect that a little bit too. And a much more accurate quarterback in Matt Ryan. So I think we all like Michael Pittman Jr. here as a wide receiver 1. Coming off his sophomore year of 88 catches for 1,082 yards and 6 touchdowns. And that was with Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz definitely started the year with just, okay, say the least.
Yeah, he's obviously getting a big-time upgrade. And, we heard about it all, right when camps were starting, about how Matt Ryan can put the ball right where he needs it and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of grew from there. You saw a lot of positive pub and cool and good clips of Michael Pittman just kind of dominating joint practices and stuff like that. I do think he kind of took a couple of years to get into the NFL game. This is year 3 for him. It's going to be a big year. He's getting a big upgrade at the quarterback position. And you mentioned, Rich, there's other weapons around him. I mean, obviously Paris Campbell, we need to see him stay healthy, but another guy from all reports has been having a pretty decent camp as well. Obviously, Alec Pierce, another big-bodied person. We know that Matt Ryan likes to throw to those kind of targets, going back to his days in Atlanta. And Matt Ryan specifically, we broke it down a couple of years ago, is very good when he can turn around, fake a handoff, and make easy throws, coming off the play action. And he's going to have a lot of opportunity to do that with one of the best running games there with Jonathan Taylor and a very solid offensive line ahead of him. So a lot of reasons to really like Michael Pittman to have kind of a breakout year. He is I think the lead dog there in that wide receiver core without much of a doubt about that. And with the upgrade to the quarterback position, I think the sky's the limit for this guy who, last year he flashed moments of wide receiver one anyway, and finished right around in the 20s in PPR. I think he can take a big jump this year and get up there, and that's why I got him at 9. Rich, you got him at 8, and Garrett, I'm guessing you have very similar reasons why you have him at 10, but maybe not as strong as mine and Rich's.
No, clearly I hate Michael Pittman Jr. He is the worst. I haven't been talking about him all offseason or anything. One of the main reasons, and I actually mentioned this on one of the YouTube videos that I did talking about Michael Pittman Jr. was last year. The Colts ran the ball the most in the red zone out of any team in the NFL, which makes sense. You have Jonathan Taylor, but part of that was also their lack of trust in Carson Wentz in the red zone. Conversely, Atlanta threw the ball in the red zone more than any other team in the NFL because they really trusted Matt Ryan to make good decisions in the red zone. So I think we are going to see an uptick. Look, they're still going to run the ball a lot in the red zone because of how dominant that line and Jonathan Taylor are. But I do think we see a nice uptick in red zone attempts as far as passing attempts, and he's going to be that guy. He's the big-bodied threat, the jump ball guy. He saw about 25% of the targets last year in the red zone. I think we're going to see a similar number of that this year. It'll just be an increased opportunity. So instead of the 17 targets he had, I think we're going to be looking at 24, 25 targets inside the red zone, which will only lead to more touchdowns and more fantasy points.
Yeah, and you expect this team to throw the football more as well. This is a team that you mentioned, they ran the ball a ton. In the red zone's a huge number, right? That trust when it comes down to Carson Wentz. I mean, just look at the steady decline when it comes to pass attempts. Last year, the Colts averaged 30.6 pass attempts per game. That was it because of the Carson Wentz. The year before, even with an old Phillip Rivers, right, who didn't have the good arm, they averaged about 34.5 pass attempts per game. And if you go back before that with Andrew Luck even, they averaged about 40 pass attempts per game. So look for the Colts to actually throw the football a little bit more. Definitely when they're looking to stop that run game. I love the weapons around them. You got to remember Mo Alley Cox at tight end. He's uber athletic as well, so he'll draw some coverage from those linebackers. I think this all just pushes Michael Pittman to have a really big year. And like we mentioned from a dynasty aspect, that he takes a monster step when it comes to ADP and value in dynasty startups overall. I think Michael Pittman in the 2023 startup leagues will find himself in the first round of dynasty startups as he enters that next tier of young wide receivers that's going to give you kind of like what Mike Evans has done, right? 1,000 yards every single year. Just whether it might not be wide receiver 1, but anywhere from wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 9 year in and year out. And that's dynasty gold, right? That's a championship caliber cornerstone. Michael Pittman's about to make himself a cornerstone player. So I'm glad we all have him as wide receiver 1s. I kind of expected that with us all kind of talking about him taking that leap this year. Garrett, you had who else did you have in your top 9 here?
So I had Debo and then I had Mike Evans.
Okay. I have Debo at 10 and I have Mike Evans at 12. I had Deebo Samuel, or I had DJ Moore at 9. I'll give you my number 11 was Mike Williams too. So I think these bottom guys here in a bunch, I kind of want to see who we have in and who we have don't out. I still want to take them all up here and see where we're all at. So let me just go through, 7 I had Diggs, 8 Pittman, 9 DJ Moore, 10 Deebo Samuel, 11 Mike Williams, 12 Mike Evans. I want to kind of hear all of our top 12 and kind of go through all these guys instead of going back where you had them, where you didn't have them, because I think we're going to have a lot of the same guys here.
Sure. So I had at number, I did 7, 8, 9. 7 was CeeDee Lamb, 8 Stephon Diggs, 9 Michael Pittman. Then I had 10 Mike Evans, 11 Deebo Samuel, 12 Mike Williams. Because I had to.
So we have besides DJ Moore, we're the same.
Correct. Yeah.
So Matt, you and I, our top 12 is exactly the same amongst players, except for you have AJ Brown in, and I have him out, and I have DJ Moore in. So Garrett, let me hear yours.
All right. So I had Deebo Samuel at 7, Mike Evans at 8, Tyreek Hill at 9, Michael Pittman Jr. at 10. And I agreed with you guys to an extent. I do have a Chargers wide receiver inside the top 12, but I have Keenan Allen at 11. and then I have DJ Moore at 12.
Yeah.
Oh, so we both got DJ Moore in there. That's good. And I actually had Keenan Allen where I had Mike Williams, and then I deleted it and I put Mike Williams in because, and listen, I know that he was second in the Chargers when it came to targets and catches behind Keenan Allen. I understand that. He still had 129 targets in 2021, which is really good. But I think the big thing here was I always go back to that Heath Cummins tweet, right, from a while back when he said, what happened to Mike Williams weeks 6 through 10 last year? And what happened was he hurt his knee versus the Cleveland Browns. So weeks 1 through 5, and this is all off the Heath Cummins tweet. You can see it. It's from a couple months ago. Weeks 1 through 5, he averaged 22.8 PPR points per game and 10.2 targets. Then he hurt his knee. And then he went down to 5.9 PPR points per game weeks 6 through 10 and 5.3 targets. And then jumped back up 11 to 18 with 15.3 PPR points per game and 8.1 targets. He had multiple weeks where he's the number 1 fantasy wide receiver overall. Keenan Allen, a little bit older, still a savvy route runner. And listen, if you want to put, we're at 11, right? And I have Keenan Allen probably right around 14. So it's not like he's too far off either. If they did flip-flop, I'm okay with that. But I think this offense and Justin Herbert in his third year as well, taking another big step, is designed to push the ball downfield. Justin Herbert's arm is too good not to push the ball downfield, and Mike Williams is one of the best downfield receivers in the NFL today. So I think he's going to benefit. I think Mike Williams, I like him as a receiver, but I think Mike Williams does benefit from Justin Herbert, right? Like he's
sure
a really great quarterback is going to elevate there are other players around him. And I think Mike Williams is a really good player, so I think he's going to elevate him. And I think Justin Herbert's strengths really match up with Mike Williams' strengths as well. And I think that target share is going to switch a little bit because I think it's going to be a little bit more 50-50, where if Mike Williams wasn't hurt last year, I do look at Mike Williams, who through weeks 1 through 18 was wide receiver 12 overall. If you had the whole 18 weeks, I think without hurting his knee and taking about those 4 weeks there, 4 to 5 weeks where he was a little bit banged up and we saw his targets drop down, literally cut in half. His target share was literally cut in half because of that knee. I think we're talking about a top 8 fantasy football wide receiver, and I have him here at number 11. I love this offense. I love the other receiver outside of him because Keenan Allen does take the better cornerback with him because he's such a good route runner. So he needs that better quarterback that can stay with him, where Mike Williams can take the top off and dominate a receiver on the outside with his size, and Justin Herbert's good enough to put the ball exactly where it needs. So, with a player coming in here, seeing about 30% of the targets because there's not a lot of other players to go out there. I like Josh Palmer a lot. I'm not really worried about the tight end in this offense here, but I think it's a 1-2-3 combo of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler. So I think Mike Williams has a chance to pick up right where he left off. And that's more so as the weeks 1 through 5 season, where he was a top 5 fantasy football receiver. I think on a points per game basis, he was the number 2 overall fantasy football receiver weeks 1 through 5. I love the player. I love the offense. I had to get him in here. I know, Matt, you go ahead and piggyback off that too. I know you love him just as much as me. Is there anything I missed here why he's a top 12 fantasy football receiver for you?
I think the one thing that I could recall off the top of my head that you did not say was watching him play last year at the beginning of the year before he got injured. He was doing more than just he was being more than just a deep threat for the Chargers offense. He was doing a lot more of the route running and kind of intermediate stuff as well. So you saw his average, yards per catch average kind of take a little dip at the beginning of the year, but he was getting a lot more targets. And kind of reverted back to almost being a little bit more of a deep threat when he had the knee injury. And I think that's when we saw the slump in all his production as well. And once he got healthy, he kind of got back to his early season mode. But I think you basically broke all that stuff down. I just wanted to mention you're talking all about his deep stuff. I just wanted to at least mention that prior to the injury, he was doing a little bit more in the intermediate type of stuff as well, and even getting some screens thrown out to him. They were really getting him involved and getting him touches early in games and getting him kind of in the flow, where in the past it was kind of like, let's just chuck a few balls downfield to Mike Williams and see if we can get him in the game that way. They were getting him involved close to the line of scrimmage, intermediate, and down the field, which is huge. I mean, that's exactly what you want out of your wide receiver. You don't want him just getting balls chucked downfield. You want him kind of involved in the entire offense, and that's what they did early on in the season last year.
The only reason I didn't have Mike Williams in there, I do have Mike Williams as a wide receiver too, so I didn't hate on him or anything like that. I think I'm probably just a little closer to consensus on Mike Williams. But part of it was, historically, it's been Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's been the main guy. He's proven it year after year after year. It's really hard to remove someone that's proven it that many times over and over and over again. The other reason is we mentioned Josh Palmer, but stylistically, he is a much closer replica to Mike Williams. Not as good, obviously, but he would be a guy that would take more of those intermediate to deep targets, where that's where Mike Williams traditionally has really shined, whereas Keenan Allen's more the underneath. So I don't think Josh Palmer is going to be taking much away from Keenan Allen. I think if anyone, he's going to be taking in a little bit of some of those big plays that Mike Williams is still going to lead the team on, but you're going to lose one or two of those a game that he would have gotten. So I think that's the other reason for me that I have him outside of my top 12.
A receiver we had in our top 12, Garrett, that's the same as you as I. We already know why Matt doesn't have him here. I have a number 9 was DJ Moore. It hasn't been a wide receiver 1 yet. Coming off of the season where he's wide receiver 20. I think it's wide receiver 21 a year after that. We all know the stats, right? 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's what DJ Moore does. But DJ Moore is coming off he's historical bad quarterback play. Historical bad quarterback play. This is somebody who comes in with I had a note here on how bad the quarterback play. I know we talked about it last week as well. I lost it. But he's somebody that his best finish was wide receiver 16. They bring in Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield should open his passing game way more than any other quarterback. This is somebody here it is. With all the other quarterbacks combined, it was like they averaged 17 touchdowns per game. Little over 17 touchdowns per game for Carolina while DJ Moore's been there. So literally a pass and touchdown a week is what they average. Where Baker Mayfield alone averaged 23 touchdowns a year. So that alone is going to boost him just because more touchdown opportunities. I think DJ Moore in his new contract has just been ready to shine out there, waiting for an accurate quarterback, and a quarterback that could, put the ball where it needs to be, put the player in position to exceed after the catch. Terrace Marshall, still a lot of rumblings where it's just him and that organization they're not clicking very well. Robbie Sanderson's okay, but listen, he was talking all that dirt about Baker Mayfield before. Baker, he holds grudges. He's not going to forget that. All these balls are going to Christian McCaffrey. They're all going to DJ Moore. I think he's in line to finally see that. All DJ Moore has really needed to enter that wide receiver 1 category is more touchdowns, more than 4 touchdowns. So I expect this offense with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, with better quarterback play, to move the football downfield a little bit more. And remember, Baker Mayfield, going back to 2019, where did he help Jarvis Landry finish?
Top 12. That's what
wide receiver.
I was just looking that up because I was gonna make my counter argument that none of Baker's wide receivers ever finished as a wide receiver 1, but then there he is. He squeaked in wide receiver 12, 2019.
Yeah, and before that, he had 2 wide receiver 2s with Baker and Odell. So yeah, he got Jarvis Landry to be a wide receiver 12. And Jarvis Landry is a very good receiver, but he's not nearly as good as DJ Moore. So I think with this addition, with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, with a defense that's just okay, I think this is finally the year we see the DJ Moore breakout that I've been waiting for. It's the reason I've been acquiring so many shares in my Dynasty leagues, because I expect, still 25 years old, still ready. He hasn't even hit his prime. I think this is where I think we see Baker get an extension in Carolina. I think he's a long-term answer in Carolina because I still think Baker's a good quarterback. And I think DJ Moore is about to enter the category for the next 4 to 5 years as a consistent wide receiver 1 because that's the talent he has.
I really do love your optimism, Rich, for all of that stuff. I feel like I feel like almost the exact opposite about this entire team. I feel like this is they're trying to patch it together with another guy that they just bring in, before the season, and there's no cohesion. This is going to be the year that the whole thing blows up and everyone's out of here at the end of the year. Personally, but could it go your way? Absolutely, and I think you laid out a nice argument for that. I'm not there with the player. I'm not there, with the situation to put him up there. But I can see the argument. And
it took you 2 years to come around on Stephon Diggs. I can wait 2 years for you to come around on DJ Moore. It's not a big deal. I got time.
That's fine.
I'm only 42.
We got nothing but time here. We got nothing but time. Time will tell whether or not this guy is a jag or whether or not he's an actual playmaker.
Whoa. He is not a jag.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that.
The only player over the past 4 years to have 1,000 yards or more every single season has been DJ Moore. He's not a jag.
I understand. He's not a jag, and I don't mean it that way.
Well, Mike Evans.
But is he a difference maker? And we haven't seen that yet.
Yards.
From a fantasy football standpoint, he has not been a difference maker on anyone's team. He's not going to win you a championship.
Because the quarterbacks have been thrown to him with his first name Turd, last name Ferguson. What's the guy supposed to do? It's a miracle what he's done already. That's like me after throwing the football. That's not going to end very well. I'm proud of you, DJ, for all that you've overcome.
All right. Well, I put me in the I got to see it before I believe it type of category with DJ Moore.
All right, Garrett, back me up here. You had him in your top 12.
Yeah, I absolutely have him in the top 12. I have him right at 12. And really all we need to see, you laid it out beautifully. All we need to see is roughly a touchdown and a half to get him into that wide receiver 1 range. So I don't think that's a lot to ask. I think the target numbers are fine, but I also think we haven't seen a lot of on-target throws. If we even just get a little bit of an increase on target throws as well, we're now seeing those. He's getting 8 targets, 9 targets in the game, but he only has 3 receptions because so many of those passes were uncatchable and underthrown and things like that. So if we can even just increase a catch a game because of more accurate passes, you don't have to go up in targets whatsoever. Just a little better accuracy and just a little bit better luck in the touchdown department, and he's right in there. So it's not a stretch at all for him to get in there. It really doesn't take much figuring to see a very clear path for that being a possibility. And I really think that this is the year that does happen.
You guys do remember that
Baker Mayfield averages 26 touchdowns per game.
You guys remember the video that Odell's dad sent out, right?
What does that have to do with it?
Because Baker was hurt. Yeah. Okay. I mean Christian McCaffrey didn't play last year. Going to send videos of him on the couch eating Cheetos.
No, I'm just saying, the video of Charlie the Unicorn from back in the early YouTube days.
I'm just saying, guys, there's been some issues with receivers questioning Baker Mayfield's precision as a passer as well. That's all I'm going to say.
Did you see that last preseason game when Baker Mayfield threading the needle? I mean, goodness
I've seen blind.
I thought he was like Betty Ross.
I've seen blind squirrels get
guy.
Nuts before, Rich. It happens. I mean, you throw it and guys dive all over the place and miss things that will later on in the year be packing up groceries at the local grocery store. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I'm glad you're watching squirrel porn. All right, let's move on to another receiver here. Now, we all had Deebo Samuel in our top 12, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is anybody worried about Trey Lance?
That's why I put him down to 11. That's where I have him.
That's why I'm at 10.
Yeah. So, yes, is the short answer.
They kept Jimmy G for a reason, guys.
Absolutely, they did.
Him for a reason.
And that gives me probably more reason to keep him in my top 12 than anything else, because if Trey Lance sucks, which I think he's shown enough inconsistencies that I feel like he's not a very good quarterback personally, and obviously San Francisco feels that way too, because they just brought back a guy that they talked about shipping out all offseason. They restructured his contract to keep him around, and I think that speaks volumes. I don't know that everyone can hear the volume that it speaks, but I can hear it personally.
And I think it speaks volumes what Jimmy's seen too. Jimmy's like watching him practice. Everyone's like, yeah, I'll stick around here. It won't be too long.
Yep.
Hey, that's all I want you to do. I want you to put in my contract. I'll take less money, but but just give me an opportunity to make that money back by per games I play.
Yep.
Because this is too good of a team to not get me out there, and that's an excuse they're going to use. Like, hey, Trey Lance still isn't ready yet, and we're going to give a little break to learn office. We're going to cheat me out here, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, because it is. I mean, you got to be worried a little about Trey Lance kind of like wanting to run first, then throw the football. Now, I know Debo dominates with the ball yards after the catch, so that's going to suit him well. But even if Trey Lance isn't that great, Debo's still good enough with the ball in his hands, and they still. Kyle Shanahan said still they want to use him as a wide back, so they're still giving him rushing opportunities. He rushed last year 59 times for 365 yards, and that happened on he didn't really start rushing the ball a lot until about week 10. So they utilize him a little bit more in that aspect even earlier in the season. I think that alone is going to help Deebo Samuel maintain his running back, his wide receiver one stature. Because again, with the ball in his hands, he's probably one of the most dynamic players with the ball in his hands in the NFL. I mean, we talked about him coming out in college, right? It's why we gave him a round 1 rookie grade watching him. This is a player that we loved when we scouted him and said, when you put the ball in this guy's hands, he's like a running back out there. And that's what he does, and he dominates. So in last year, there's only 3 receivers last year that averaged 20 points per game. It was Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and Deebo Samuel. So Trey Lance, does it hurt Deebo some? Yeah, but not enough to keep him out of my wide receiver 1 category for this year.
I'm in the same boat. I actually have him a hair higher than you guys. I have him at 7. I do think that there will be a little bit of regression, and I do wonder how much they're going to use him as a running back. I think we'll probably see that 59 number probably stay about the same, only because I think we'll see a slight downtick of rushes per game. But I think we'll still see roughly the same number. But when you're talking about somebody that was at times the entire offense, that's really what Deebo Samuel was. The entire offense was on his back, and you saw in those clutch moments, in those big games, they found ways to give him the football. And with how this division is, and it's still a very talented division. I know the Seahawks aren't what they were before, but they have the reigning Super Bowl champs in their division. And then they have the Cardinals, who are begging to be a playoff team. They just spent tons of money on a new contract for Kyler. They really think they are a competitive team. So this is going to once again be a very competitive division. And I think that they're going to be in a lot of tight games this year, especially if Trey Lance is a little bit erratic, where we're seeing these 14 to 16 types of games and 21 to 24 and a lot of these really tighter games where at the end of the game, there's going to be one player that needs the ball, and it's going to be Deebo Samuel. So I really think that in those clutch moments, he's going to put the team on their back again, on his back again, and that's going to be where a lot of his fantasy success comes from.
Sorry, Matt. Even if you eliminate Deebo Samuel's rushing yards, there's 365, which equates to about 36.5 points. He still finishes right behind 1 point, like basically behind Jamar Chase as wide receiver 6 overall and ahead of Tyreek Hill. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that they're still going to manufacture easy touches for him. I do question whether or not he's going to have quite as many rushing yards, just due to the fact that Trey Lance might be holding on to some of those and rushing himself, because he is the dynamic rusher of the football as well. And I think that's probably Trey Lance's best skill set at this point in the NFL. So I do think there is going to be regression there from a rushing standpoint. Like to your point, Garrett, is he going to get the same amount? It's just going to be spread over 17 games instead of kind of condensed in that back half of the year that it kind of was last year. Possibly, or there could just be a flat out reduction if Trey Lance ends up rushing the ball, and that's kind of like the only way he can threaten defenses. So, only time will tell. There's a reason I dropped him from, he was top 3 last year all the way down to 11. I'm nervous about it. I'm nervous about the whole situation. If you said Jimmy G was 100% going to be here, he would be much higher in my ranks if I knew he was going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers. So it's the Trey Lance unknown. A lot of people hanging their hats on Trey Lance this offseason as kind of a huge upside type of guy. I just don't think we saw it in game action when he was playing. I do think he can threaten defenses with his legs, but I think he's very erratic as a passer. So it just makes me real nervous. And Deebo Samuel's, I think, I think everyone on the team is going to suffer a little bit in the passing game anyway. So it makes me nervous.
I think the biggest reason for optimism would be is that Kyle Shanahan's a really smart coach, and you think you'd want to protect. I mean, listen, there's a lot of jobs on the line when you give up 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, and that goes back, from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. So this is, I think they're going to have to put him in the best position to succeed. And I think what benefits this offense to succeed is that George Kittle and Deebo Samuel are 2 of the best players in the NFL with the ball in their football hands and yards after contact and yards after the catch. So I think they should, like Matt said a couple minutes ago, they're going to hopefully design a lot of plays to get the ball out quickly into their playmakers' hands to kind of give you those Fugazi stats on Trey Lance. And I think I mentioned this last week when we talked about Trey Lance a little bit. Garrett anyways was saying, hey, I think Trey Lance's numbers will be somewhat Fugazi with the simple fact that, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle will make those numbers look better with a lot of those short ball, catches in the flat screens, and they'll do so well with the ball in their hands that they'll help Trey Lance look a little better, and that's probably their best chance for success. We talked to Mike Williams, Mike Evans. Is there really a lot to say about Mike Evans here? I mean, I guess there is something to say. This is a guy who's been a wide receiver 1 every single year, pretty much. This guy who has 1,000 yards every single year of his career. I know some people might be a little bit nervous that he had career high in touchdowns last year and the year before, 13 and 14 there. Some people are going to say, well, that's the only reason he was a wide receiver 1 last year because saw a lot of stuff come down with his numbers after Brady got there. We saw his target share is at an all-time low since Brady got there. It's dropped every single year since Brady got there, but his touchdowns have gone up. We all have him in as a wide receiver 1, so we all feel pretty confident here. I feel good about it with Russell Gage coming in and Julio Jones. Those guys aren't big-time weapons in my eyes. They really take targets away. We still don't know if Chris Godwin's going to be 100% going into week 1. So I think Mike Evans is the clear number 1 receiver here early in the season. And when you play a guy with a guy like Brady, who's going to throw for about 5,000 yards, it's easy to find Mike Evans as your wide receiver 1 in 2022.
100%, man. You just laid it out. Julio Jones has never been a guy, even though he is 6'3", 215 pounds. He was never a guy that scored a ton of touchdowns. We always used to kind of make fun of the fact that he barely scored any touchdowns. All of his production came off of just volume and him making big plays, but he seemed to always come up a yard short, or he wasn't getting targeted in the end zone and stuff. So I'm not worried about that. I think Mike Evans is super safe. I think Brady knows how to use him in the red zone. He's such a weapon there, and he's so hard to cover with his 6'5" frame. Combine that with Brady's just prowess in that area and just ability to throw guys open, and it's a match made in heaven. I think you can count on him to get around 1,100 yards and 10-plus touchdowns this year, and that's why I got him in pretty easily as a wide receiver 1 this year.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much more to touch on. You guys did a great job laying it out. I have him as my wide receiver 8. I once again expect double-digit touchdowns, especially early on in the season when there's not really a lot of other people to trust. And let's face it, as much as we've loved Mike Evans in the red zone and Tom Brady's loved him in the end zone, he's loved Gronkowski even more, and Gronk's not there anymore. So I think that's only going to increase the looks that Mike Evans gets down near the end zone. So I like Mike Evans this year, top 10 guy.
All right, are we missing somebody, Garrett, here that we didn't talk about?
I think we've basically touched on everyone. The only one that I haven't gone in depth about is Keenan Allen, but we touched on that, and I kind of laid out my point as to why I had him over Mike Evans. So I think we're ready to move on to the tight ends in our next episode.
Well, before we did, like we said at the beginning of the show, I mentioned we're going to start our annual Dynasty Nerds redraft league. And I know we're starting a little bit late because, procrastination does something like that. We were talking about it, but we want to get a redraft league going on. We want to do it every year. We want to do it with the Nerd Herd. So what we do is we're going to announce that in the Discord channel. We're going to pick 9 people to play, maybe even 11. Do a little 14-man league action, right? With the Dynasty Nerds group there on Sleeper. Do a little 14-man league there. And we're going to pick people from the Nerd Herd. Now, to help, to encourage everybody to get in the Nerd Herd as well on the Discord, Right now we have a promo code. The promo code's football. It gives you 15% off of all the tools that we have in Dynasty. If you get ready for the season, no tool is better to help you navigate your season than a Dynasty GM tool with the trade calculator, with the player share, and of course with the league analyzer. On top of that, as the season progresses, we have all 22 film for all the rookies to scout throughout the year. So once your season ends and you're ready to get into Dynasty mode, we have the Dynasty Nerds film room. It's used by every major analyst out there today. Then we get so many messages about how people just thank us for our film room. We were down at the Football Expo, and I was talking to so many people, even from networks, like major networks, going, man, I love your guys' film room. I use it all the time. So the film room, the GM, all of that, promo code football is going to save you 15% off your membership. It's literally the price of a cup of coffee. You get the bonus podcast as well, and now a chance to play in a redraft league. If you use the promo code football, and you do it within the next couple of days, because we're probably going to pick this redraft league sometime over the holiday weekend. But if you use the promo code football, we'll pick 2 new Nerd Herd members to join this redraft league with us as well. We'll take the 9 other guys that have been historically Nerd Herd members and get in the league as well. We'll have some cool prizes. There'll be no buy-in. It's just being a Nerd Herd member. We'll give away some prizes. We're going to do this every single year. We're going to host on Sleeper, 14-man PPR league. Who knows what the rules are yet, because we haven't decided. But it's going to be a PPR league. We'll see the roster. So get into Dynasty Nerd. Join the Nerd Herd today. Promo code football. Save 15%. Give it a try. See if you like it. See if it's for you. If you love Dynasty Fantasy Football, I promise you the Nerd Herd's for you. Until then, we'll be back next week with our bold predictions. But as a Nerd Herd member, you're going to be checking out our top 12 tight ends in our next episode.
Adios.